Hey guys, me again with my Entrolith. It was a little bit more popular than I had imagined, the video I made before. And a few of you had a few questions around prevention and ways that we can reduce the risk of these occurring. And throughout all my research, there are definitely ways that we can manage our horses' diet and way that they live so that these things don't form. I mean, the most obvious thing is don't give them access to anything that is considered a foreign body to ingest. As I mentioned, baling twine and things that they chew on. Interestingly, or I mean, maybe not so interestingly, their diet plays a huge role in prevention of these, or diet can increase the risk of these forming. You know, we've domesticated horses, and so they rely pretty much solely upon us for their sources of food and how they get to live out their days. So what we feed them plays a huge role in how their bodies react. It would be very interesting to, I mean, we'll never know, but how many of these actually form in the wild due to horses foraging and eating the way that they're designed to. So a big risk factor is lucerne hay. So the guidelines is less than 50% of their diet. Now, horses that get access to grass and are turned out each day, the grass and pasture becomes the majority of their diet. So lucerne is automatically less than 50% of their diet. So that percentage, I guess, is more appropriate to horses that don't have access to turnout or in boxes, you know, more often than not. Lucerne is high in protein, magnesium and calcium, which creates an ideal gut environment for these stones to form. So that's why they say to limit lucerne to less than 50% of their total diet. So one of the things they do say is to maximize turnout, maximize your horse's ability to access pasture, and you're already, you know, preventing the risk of these dramatically. If you feed hay, or you have to feed hay because your horse hasn't got a lot of access to pasture, mix it up. We have lucerne, we feed lucerne, but we also have teff hay and wheaten hay that we mix sometimes for horses that are either on box rest or limited access to pasture, because we have really rich pastures here like clover, and this time of year is big risky time for horses that are prone to laminitis, so we have to feed more hay as their forage as opposed to them having to access to the sugary grass. So we always have teff hay or wheaten hay on hand for those horses prone to laminitis, so that yeah, they're not obviously overloading in sugar, but then we also have to be conscious that they're not ingesting too much lucerne and protein as well. Another thing that's really important to say is never feed directly off the ground, especially if you're on sandy, gravelly areas. Always use a feed bin, hay bag, hay feeder, slow hay feeder where possible, because eating off the ground, obviously you can see this horse has ingested a stone. So anywhere that you can reduce that risk is amazing. So I guess the big thing is prioritize pasture and turnout where possible. You know, recreate that natural habitat that the horses are used to. You know, they're wild animals that are used to foraging and eating pasture. You know, we're the ones that have domesticated them and put them in stables and feeding them processed feeds. So the more that we can replicate their normal lifestyle, the less likely they are to have issues such as this. At the end of the day, horses are wild animals. As I said before, it would be really interesting to know how many of these form in wild horses. They don't get fed lucerne hay, they don't get fed processed feeds, so maybe the risk is dramatically reduced, which I'm sure it would be. I don't know the statistics. Our horses rely solely on us, so we owe it to them to feed them accordingly and look after them. I'm not a qualified vet, but I have had horses the majority of my life, so you learn a lot of things, and this being one of my interests, not only because I've had a horse that has had one, but it's always been something that fascinates me, that a horse can actually produce something like this. Thank you for showing so much interest in my fun facts about Entroliths. I hope you learned something. If there's any other tips I've missed, or any vets or any experts watching this, please feel free to drop in the comments and yeah, share your experience or share your learnings.